Hello students, I'm soft skills trainer from Department of Career Planning and Development, Chandigarh University. So I welcome you to the video session for the interview question. So today we'll be looking at one such interview question. So let's start this video session, students. So today we'll try and frame answer for one behavioral question. So but before understanding the question, understanding the context of the question, what we need to say, what we need to avoid, and how to go about that particular question, we need to understand what behavioral questions are. So what are your behavioral questions? Simple. So your behavioral question is actually a popular interview technique. It used by the hiring managers, and it actually is based on their past behavior. So instead of asking, the interview doesn't ask you any hypothetical question. That means he doesn't put you in situations, okay, what if, okay. So he actually asks you, okay, how. That means, okay, how you have behaved in a certain in a certain situation. So he actually gives you how questions, not if questions. So for example, he might give you a question: describe a time when you were under a lot of pressure, how did you react? So he actually try and elicit some response from your past behavior, from your past behavior, and try and assess your past behavior. So a hiring manager asks really specific behavioral questions. And according to world job search portal indeed.com, so interviewers are usually trying to learn three things. So if we talk about your behavioral questions, they are trying to learn three things. First, they want to know how you have behaved in a real world situation. Number second, they wanted to understand the measurable value you added to the situation. And the third one is, finally, they are trying to learn how you define something like pressure at work, a concept different for different people. So they are looking at three things. Number one is your behavior in the past. Number two, what you did in that particular situation. And number three is your defining pressure at work. So it's simple. If I break this particular question in three form, is like, okay, if you want to give, for example, if the interviewer asks you some question, and if you have to give some reply to the interview, you can break this question in this way and try and form your response on these 3 points, like what led to the situation actually. So what is happening in that particular situation. Number two was what you did in this situation, what led to the situation. Number two, what is happening in the situation. And number three is, what is the outcome of that particular situation. So if you try and frame your answer this way, it will definitely help you to answer this question. Now again, your past behavior will give the indications to the hiring manager, and give them a window to try and judge you on the basis of your past behavior, and as to how you will behave in the future. Okay, so we have a sample question for you. The question is, tell me about a time when you were in direct conflict with a peer, and how was it resolved. Again, this question is related to you being a conflict with your peer, your colleague, or again, if you are a student, that means your classmate. So how you behaved in that particular situation, and how you were able to resolve the situation. So that means I'm actually looking your active participation for this particular question. I'm not looking you to ignore this situation and go away and think, okay, this situation will calm down itself, and I don't have to do anything. So I'll be looking at your response in such a way, okay, what you did, what were your responses, how you behaved, how you tackled the situation. Were you just blaming the other person, or you were taking responsibility for your own act or not? So these are certain things that we'll be looking at whenever a candidate actually answers the question. So again, let's understand the question in a deeper way. So hiring manager, first of all, they want real life examples where you have actually used your skills and you ensured a positive outcome. Again, don't talk about the outcome which were negative. If he specifically asks, okay, just talk about a situation where in which you were conflict situation in which you were involved, and it doesn't got solved. Okay, so then you have to give a situation wherein you are not able to solve the situation. Okay, hiring manager is looking for you to provide an example that actually eliminates how you deal with difficult situation. I've explained you how you are actually dealing with the situation, how you are solving the problem, how you're responding to the problem, and have you learned anything from the problem if you've solved the problem. And if you've learned something from the problem, what steps you have taken to make sure that you don't repeat the same problem, repeat your same behavior if you learned something from the problems. Now these all these aspects are really important to the question, and if you pay close attention to these aspects while framing your answer, you will definitely end up framing a really good one, a good answer, I would say. Okay, this question gives candidates a chance to highlight their abilities and show their skills that will directly benefit the company. Again, uh, it's all about you, it's all about your learning, how you're responding. Okay, and if you have responded in a positive way, the way the company actually looking for, again, that might guarantee you the job that you are interviewing for. Okay, again, understanding the question, so part 2 is the hiring manager is actually looking to understand how you resolve conflicts. Now this particular conflict, resolving conflicts, is a really important one. Now why it is important? For example, if at a workplace conflicts are not resolved, it actually hampers the productivity of the organization, of your team. So let's say if I am a manager and two of my employees doesn't like each other, that means they'll not be coordinating, that means they'll not be giving their 100% while working together. That means that the productivity of the team will decrease because they don't like each other. Now I have to step in and make sure that whatever conflicts they are actually having to be resolved, because it's it's not easy to keep your professional and personal life different, because when candidates or when employers mix their personal and professional life, that's one at times conflicts arise. And also at the workplace there are certain instances because of which we have conflicts with our seniors, juniors, or with our peers. Now again, it's our own duty to understand what those conflicts are, to look at those conflicts from all the different angles. If I am the problem, if the other person, if the problem, if the situation or the environment is the problem, and then go about solving them. Some of the techniques that we have underlined you to understand that are actually required, that will help you to resolve some conflicts, is some skills required for conflict resolutions are: number one is actually recognizing and addressing the problem. Now this skill is really important. At times candidates don't even recognize, and when they don't recognize the problem, how they going to address the problem? Understanding the perspective of others. Again, if you're thinking just from your own perspective, that means you have a singular view, that means you are having a biased view, because if you are having one viewpoint, that is actually called a biased view. So try and understand their perspective as well, try and understand their take on the problem as well, negotiating or creating a resolution that suits all parties. Now this is really important one. That means you are trying and finding a balance in while negotiating. That means you're trying and convincing all the parties involved in the problem, in the conflict. For example, if you yourself is involved in the problem, in the conflict, that means you need to find a solution that not only satisfies you but also the other party. The last one is ensuring that the said resolution is carried out and successfully. Again, if you have negotiated, both the parties have negotiated or created a solution that actually is good for all the parties, that doesn't that means the problem doesn't, or the conflict doesn't end there and then only. That means the last part is ensuring the successful implementation of that particular resolution. And then one more step I would say is learning from the conflict, its situation, its resolution, its implementation, and then making sure that, and taking some steps to ensure that such conflicts doesn't arise again in the workplace. And if there are similar conflicts, you have a ready SOP to address the problem. Now again, you must have understood how important it is to resolve some conflicts, because basis on that, not only you will be dealing with the present situation, but also you're preparing for the future situations as well. So again, if you are including all such things in your sample answer, that will definitely help you to give a really good answer. Okay, how to answer this question? Now again, keep your focus on the positive outcome. Again, you need to take the thing is focusing on positive outcome means that you need to take some steps to end the resolution. Okay, the interviewer wants to see how a bad situation becomes a good one. He wants to see a transition that you actually brought. Focusing on the problem, and again, second thing is focusing on the problem. At times we directly jump in and try to get resolution. That shouldn't be the case, because you need to analyze the problem. You need to think analytically to get to the root cause of the problem. That means taking a step back and for a moment just forgetting about the solution, just thinking about the problem itself and trying and finding a solution that actually will work for the root cause, not for the symptoms. Show both sides of the conflict. Again, now it's really easy to blame the other person when the other person is not present in the room for the conflict. But again, the hiring manager wants to see that if you are willing to take responsibility for your part of the conflict, because if you are in conflict with someone, that means if the mistake of the other person, let's say, is 60%, that means you are at fault of 40% as well. So if you are not taking responsibility for your 40% fault, that clearly shows off that you are shrugging off or running off from the responsibility. So don't play off your problems, rather than address them and be accountable for them. Practice, now this is a really important one. Practice the balance between accepting your weakness. Okay, you need to accept your weakness. Okay, you might be weak, but without focusing on the negative part of your personality. Now what usually candidates do, they somehow, while and taking accountability, they show that there is this fault with their personality. No, you have to walk a very fine line while answering this particular question. You need to practice that. Okay, you are accepting your mistake, that means you may be weak in some area, but your personality as a whole is not a weak personality, or you are not deliberately pointing out some faults in your personality. So again, it's a really important one. The other thing is, be prepared with the answer. Again, if you're not prepared with the answer, chances are you will end up giving a really foolish answer, an answer that is totally irrelevant. So again, these are some of the basic some of the common questions that you might encounter in the interview. So again, you have to be prepared. Again, choose an example before the interview starts. You need to choose an example, try and fit that particular example in the as per the conflict, and try and show your best abilities. But again, you need to take accountability, but again, you need to make sure that you doesn't show any negative faults in your personality. So there's this approach that is called the STAR method approach that you can utilize to organize your answer. Number one is situation or task, or a clearly identified problem. For again, ST means the situation or the problem. That means first, identification of the problem. A, actions that were taken to resolve. Again, the actions what you after analyzing the problem, what actions you actually took is the result of the situation from negative to positive. So with this STAR approach, you can frame your answers relatively well. Okay, moving on further, things to avoid. Do not show casual remarks about how you would now these are really casual remarks. Okay, I would meet that particular person in the parking lot and sort out our differences. Now these actually shows that you are really casual about the problem, but it shouldn't be the case. Again, you are working, your conflicts might hamper the productivity of other employees as well, and you're taking it casually. That is a serious problem. Conflict at workplace are serious problem for the organizations. Okay, so don't do that. Don't show any casual response. Poor examples, again, poorly defined examples should that actually didn't turned out well, you should be avoiding those examples. While the situation started out negative, don't dwell on the bad parts when relaying the story. Again, if you have a negative, you because in conflict you have a negative example, and then you try and translate it from the negative to a positive one. Don't just end up talking about the negative part. Okay, a sample answer. So this particular sample answer as per the working individuals. So for this for recent graduates, I would suggest you can take some examples from your during your college days. Like if you have a team, if you are working on a project, you have certain conflicts, then you can utilize that particular situation to frame your answer and give a response in the interview. Now understand this thing is, don't end up giving too personal responses. Okay, do not end up talking about your parents, your someone close to you. Don't do that. uh, Keep it somewhat formal in a way. So that means you can you can pick up some situations from your uh, college life. That means some fest or teamwork that you were involved in, and there are definitely conflicts, so you can utilize some situations. You can say, okay, we were working on this project, so I was responsible for presentation, the other team the other team member were responsible for project file, but because of some misunderstanding, they thought that we'll be making presentation, we'll be making project file, and they'll be making something like that you can come up with. And then there was this conflict, no we were right, no we were right. Then again you need to show how you stepped in, because you have to meet deadline as well. So somehow you how you stepped in the problem, you resolved the issues, and not only and how you actually carried out your work and completed your project file and the presentation. So you can take such examples from your college life. So let's look at example. I had an upcoming deadline for a client that I knew I wasn't going to be able to meet. I verbally communicated this fact to my manager, and he agreed to speak to the client about the deadline. He forgot the conversation and was upset that my part of the project wasn't done on time. I calmly reminded of our verbal agreement, connected with the client, and took responsibility for the late work, offering them an additional follow up after the project was done to make up for the missed deadlines. I also suggested to my manager that I would be better about formalizing my plans in writing in the future. After a stressful week, the client was happy, and my manager and I had a better understanding of how we should communicate in the future. Now, this is I would say a good example for that. So it was about a person not meeting the deadline, and he knows about that. So he told these things to his manager that okay, I can't do that verbally. So but his manager forgot the verbal communication. Now he was upset why he was not able to complete the project on time. So he reminded the manager, but again he connected with the client, took the responsibility like, okay, because of me the work was late. But what actually he offered additional follow-ups after the project and for the missed deadline. And also he talked about the he took his responsibility, he accepted his mistake and said, okay, in future I'll be whatever plans I have, I'll give you whatever communication I have, will do in written form, that means through mails. And so after working tirelessly for 1 week, I would say, because after a stressful week, that shows that he must be working really on that particular project. The client was happy, and because he was able to complete the project, and because he maintained cordial relations with the manager, his manager was also happy with them. So it's, I would say, it's a balanced example. So such type of responses you need to show, wherein you are taking responsibility, you are rectifying your mistake, and then also making rectifications for the future as well. So okay, so I hope you understood how to answer this particular question. I thank you for your time to your students. Thank you very much.